Hey everyone, and welcome to the Defiler live stream. We are going to be showing you and revealing our last soul from Storm Legion.
Indeed.
I'm Elizabeth Toby, and I am here with James Elrar.
Howdy, everybody.
Who will be driving for us today, and of course our devs, who will be telling us all of the secrets of the Defiler. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I go by Zinbake on the forums. I'm sure you know me.
And if they don't, you will now.
You will now.
Yeah, but why would they know you?
I don't know. Nobody cares about clerics anyway. So
Is it because you're the cleric developer?
yeah, probably.
That's the cleric developer.
Yeah. Yep. I am the blame. I am the guy to blame for all of your problems. I'm the one you hate.
And love,
And
right?
love.
Of course.
Shower
Sometimes
him
love you.
with kisses.
So we are
What?
about.
I said they shower him with kisses.
I hope not.
I shower
they're
him with
internet
kisses.
kisses.
You shower him
Yes.
with kisses.
They're
Butterfly
that way.
kisses, like that
Right.
song, you know.
Right.
Butterfly kisses.
I need to leave.
Is that Michael Bolton? I don't even know.
No, it's not Michael.
No, it's not Michael Bolton.
Okay,
So we're gonna hop into the game, but just so you guys know, I am watching chat. If you have questions about Defiler and what you're seeing, I know you might have many questions about the game and Storm Legion. Try and keep it to this live stream. We will answer as many as we can. So let's just hop on into the game. You ready, James?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Awesome.
Oops, that's you guys.
Hi, Mom. Who's not watching? But hi, Mom.
All right, so let's get started. How would you guys just give us an overview? What is the Defiler?
Gotcha. So today we're talking about the Defiler. The Defiler is the new cleric soul with Storm Legion. So while the NDA has been lifted, there are quite a number of people who haven't seen or heard about the Defiler yet. So at least for them, this is a great unveil. So the Defiler, if you may have noticed, is a slightly different theme than the rest of the souls that we've shown so far. As we said before, all of our souls are themed to the expansion. Now we have the Tempest, who's very, lightning, air, Storm Legion themed. We had our Tactician and our Harbinger, which are more Brevane themed in general or Magic Tech themed. And now we have our Defiler, which goes the complete opposite end of the spectrum and is, as we like to say around here, a little bit misunderstood, but is death themed as well. Yeah, tragically misunderstood. And so the Defiler is a cleric soul. The thing that clerics are most well known for, obviously, is healing and kind of pulling a group through all sorts of types of nasty encounters, and the Defiler is no different. So as a healing soul, the Defiler does concentrate primarily on things like tank healing and group healing, but does have a variety of interesting effects as well. The thing that makes the Defiler awesome, and we'll get into detail about this later, is they play very strategically. They're a different style of gameplay.
One moment. Do you happen to have in your background a copy of Twitch TV running?
It should be muted, but...
We are going to check because we are seeing
Technical difficulties.
that possibly something is echoing.
Okay.
So back on into
I
the
did.
game.
It was muted, but...
Is
Okay.
that better?
Should be better.
Are we good?
Yes, let's keep going.
All right, so we were talking about Defiler, the dark, misunderstood black horse of the expansion, right? Or dark horse of the expansion, I should say. And like I said, a much more strategic style healer. Uses a variety of different special abilities like links and bonds, which we'll go into, to kind of connect them to both their allies and their enemies, making sure that various effects are playing out both from them out to their allies, or things that are done to their allies or their opponents are kind of reflected back inward. So specifically about that, why don't we give them a little bit more detail on exactly how that works?
Alright, so the basic style of healing is that you put your links on everyone, and that causes you to intercept damage. So you intercept a portion of their damage, not all of their damage, and if you spec into it enough, at a reduced rate. So you don't take all the damage, you just take some. And basically you put these stacks of foul growth, which is a delayed heal that causes the target to grow these nasty death spikes and stuff. And you can stack it up to 3 times, and then when you're ready, you can trigger it early or let it go off. You can trigger it early with Loathsome Restoration and get a giant big spike of healing. And you can continuously spam that, or you can trigger it early and go for more continuous healing.
So as a healer, you're a lot more about delaying and redirecting damage, and then using controlled bursts to heal people up.
Exactly.
Now, in addition to obviously linking to your friends, if you're not careful about that, you could kind of cause yourself no end of heartache, right?
You could potentially kill yourself if you were to just never heal yourself, never maintain your Husk of Indifference, which I will mention is an absorption shield that you can put up that actually absorbs your link damage, and through talents it can pop up every time you cast a heal. So if you're staying on top of your heals, you should be fine. But technically, if you just let yourself go, you could suffer the same fate as your foes.
So that's one of the important things to note. So while it is a very strategic class, a very powerful class, can reduce the damage going out to multiple people in your group, you have to be careful about how you manage your various links. And you also have to use what they call bonds on your opponents to, you know, get additional benefit. I know one of the bonds, for example, you can place, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Bond of Pain,
Bond is the one that heals you?
Bond of Torment is the one that heals you.
Torment.
Anytime the target uses a damaging ability, you get healed.
Yeah, so like if you want to think about the various combos, you can, you know, link up with your tank or your pet. In this case, the Beacon of Despair, which is that crazy eyeball target thing that's going on here. And redirect some of the damage into you, put Bond of Torment on your opponent, and your opponent, even by attacking, heals you of the damage that you're taking.
So I have a question from chat, which is, why so many links of varying levels of damage transfer? Why would you want more than one link on a person at a time?
So you can't stack the same link on more than one person. The reason you have 4 of them is because each can only be put on one person. So you have your top link that's, like, right now all values are obviously subject to change. Top one is a 25% retract. So you put that one on your tank. The next one is a 20% intercept. So you put that on, like, the melee guy that keeps wanting to run in, getting himself killed and whatnot. You put the lesser ones on the rest of your group so you can maintain all 4 at one time, and in that way keep your whole group covered with that extra set of protection, as well as allow you to trigger other things like feedback. His AoE heals heals more when it hits a target of your link.
Yeah, so the important thing about linking is you're kind of choosing how much damage each one of your group members are taking.
Right.
And that's the reason why there are multiple links, and you could choose to link up with multiple targets if you want to.
And they're even off GCD, so you can take them off and reapply them pretty much at will if you're skilled enough to dynamically do so.
Yeah, so that goes back to, like we said, the Defiler is a very strategic class. There's a bit of planning that's done before you even start fighting and before you kind of get into an encounter. Now, the Defiler, while is primarily a healing soul, does have a variety of really interesting combat abilities. A lot of that comes through, like we said before, the links and the bonds. You know, you can pain transmission through your links and do PBAOEs at the location of any of your linked targets, right?
Yeah, it actually ends up like a super soul drain if you link up all your group members and your Beacon of Despair actually comes linked. Your pain transmission triggers off of both you and all the target of your links. So if you're all standing together, you're going to get a huge chunk of damage. There's a lot of emphasis on damage as a secondary role for the Defiler.
Yeah. Which allows it to mix pretty good. Now, as a healer, and as a healer whose secondary function is kind of this strong damage element, they do mix really well with some of the revamped Cleric classes. I know one of the builds that we have here today is the Druid and the Defiler.
Exactly. Why don't you switch over to that?
Yeah, why don't we pull that up? Now, one of the great things about this combination is the fact that the Druid got quite a number of new overhauls to their pets. I know they've picked up a ranged DPS pet, which is really good if you're playing the Druid straight up. But the particular pet that is awesome about using with the Defiler is they actually picked up a tanking pet. So now you have a really, really durable pet that you can combine together with the Defiler to make a extremely good solo class.
Exactly. You can link to him and keep him alive far more effectively than the pure Druid could.
It's even more effective than, say, maybe taking a Druid and a Purifier, or a Druid and a Sentinel, because while those classes basically have pure healing or pure preventative, the links and the bonds allow you to funnel through that extra damage that you wouldn't normally get with those classes.
Exactly. And the Defiler also has a number of very potent damaging abilities early on that he can pick up, like Marrow Harvest and Siphon Vitality, that are really good to combo with other damaging souls. They're just like throwing in, like, say, Vex or Sanctioned Heretic on your Shaman. Those are also very useful as, like, quick things that you can throw into your rotation for a good chunk of extra damage in a lot of cases.
So speaking of Shaman, I know I'm gonna go away from the Defiler just a little bit. because I'm sure people want to know a little bit more about some of the other clerics as well. But I know the shaman got quite a number of changes. The shaman's actually one of the clerics that I play a lot, or played a lot. I haven't gotten a chance to play with him quite as much since we've revamped everything. But I've heard that it's a lot less random burst, right?
Exactly. Like the whole reliance on the RNG of Brutalize, as well as the overemphasis on crits in general, has been heavily diminished. Like now they're much more solid in a solid rotation that takes a little bit more to learn, but once you figure it out, get it into your muscle memory, it's very, very effective. It's really good. Like they have a lot of new tools now as well to quickly get into battle and just go lay into people.
Yeah, so it's less that I'm awesome every minute or so when I can rage in the north, and more of I'm a consistent, stronger DPS
Though
class.
you still have some really good bursts.
Yeah, with controlled bursts that you can turn on when you need it, not when random chance dictates. So back to the Defiler. So where are we playing right now? Or is this the Shaper Citadel?
It is Shaper Citadel,
Okay,
yep.
So that's in Warband. So you can see the entire theme of today's podcast is a little bit more deathy than we've been showing before. So that's really interesting and cool as well.
Not everything's about Crucia.
Not everything is about Crucia, that's right. There is still Regulus lurking in the shadows there.
And you can actually see Storm Legion and Endless fighting in this area, too.
So the last build that we had here preset before we go into, I think, just straight up Q&A was a more offensively oriented one, right?
Well, so I wanted to show off just like the Inquisitor itself. Why don't you switch over to that?
Sure.
Where it's basically just a 61 Inquisitor with using Defiler as his extra slash 15 points to show what a good combo he is, especially for soloing, because his 0-point ability says whenever he takes damage, he gets a stack of plus 1% damage, which is less useful in a raid, but great for soloing. So he gets a lot of extra damage really early on with, as I said before, his extra abilities that he can pick up and throw in the rotation, as well as some really good damaging talents.
Yeah, so, I mean, that ability, like you said, is kind of solo-oriented, but more importantly, it's also very PvP-oriented.
Exactly.
Because we do know that
and it's more survivable.
People tend to target clerics pretty quickly, right?
Yes, they do.
So hit a Defiler, and the Defiler is going to hit back hard.
Yes.
So, what are some other interesting aspects of this particular build? Why would a DPS class want to take Defiler as a secondary other than just that one ability?
So the added survivability is nice because with Siphon Vitality, that's a DOT that also adds a hot to you, so you can get some more healing built in, so you can take on more with less risk. He has the link early on. If he does join up with someone, that he can throw onto someone, take on some of their damage, and just a lot of good extra damage in general, so that you get the same benefits as you would comboing with, say, Shaman or something. Mm-hmm. You get the same plus 1% per point in damage, just like you would any DPS ult.
Yeah, so I mean, playing as an Inquisitor-Defiler, then one of the nice things is you can still link a target. It might not be as an effective a link,
right,
but you actually bring a little bit of extra mitigation to your group, and you can pick up all of the damage, through the life siphons or the spread healing that happens to be hitting the rest of the group.
Right.
Now, I've never really noticed this, but does he have skulls on his knees? Is that what I'm looking at, or is that just really gnarly knees? No, those are just gnarly knees. No, I'm talking about the Ed, not the chin.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just looked like a skull, and I don't know why. So, I mean, that's the Defiler in a nutshell. Like I said, we don't have a ton on this reveal because a lot of people have already seen the class. So I think we should probably spend a little bit more time just answering questions, which I'm sure we have a few, right?
Yes, I have stacked up a couple, so I will start with one that I was seeing a lot of, which was how will the Defiler work with Purifier and also the Warden for healing?
Okay, so the way it plays with absorbs is links happen after mitigation. So let's say your tank would have taken 1,000 damage, but after mitigation he takes 500 damage. So it happens, you're taking a percentage of that 500, not the 1,000. So it happens after mitigation, but it happens before absorption. So if you have a big giant absorb on him, you will intercept the damage before it hits the absorb, allowing the absorb to be more effective later on.
Great. That was good.
And with Warden, you're basically going to get a lot of added stability between your bursts of healing by adding in hots. And
mixing it up a little bit. Somebody was asking what the pet was that we were watching a little bit earlier.
So the Beacon of Despair.
Why don't we summon the
Yeah,
Beacon
why
real
don't
quick
you
so we can
switch
take
back
a
to
look?
the Pure-Defiler?
It's the most fun, anyways, for me.
He really is.
So the Beacon of Despair is less of a pet and more of a target dummy, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the important thing to note about the Beacon is it isn't an offensive pet. It's actually kind of a it attracts attention. It gets monsters angry because it's kind of freaky and it's scary looking and they want to attack it. And so it redirects the attention into the Beacon of Despair, which is basically a passive tank for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, your aggro actually transfers directly to it instead of to yourself. So as you attack mobs, they'll actually run over to attack it instead. And he's showing off the 61 point ability that transforms the target into an abomination and gives them some extra defense. But so the beacon comes linked, so it comes with a big link, so you're already absorbing a lot of its damage. You don't have to add to it, and it comes with a damage shield, so that as you draw the monsters to it, it's not only absorbing some of your damage, but it's doing a lot of damage back to them without actually moving or going anywhere. You can't control it. You can't go tell it to attack someone. It doesn't actually have any of its own attacks. It just sits there and does its thing.
Yeah, it's more of a passive tool for Defilers who are in a solo or a duo situation.
Right.
It's not really meant. The Defiler isn't a pet class. It's given tools that it needs to make sure it can level up really well and play in a solo situation. And also the Beacon will work in a variety of different groups of situations too. But we didn't want to take away from, say, the Druid, who is a very strong pet class, even more so now in Storm Legion.
Right.
So, a specific question about raids. What role do you expect the Defiler to fill in raids, or a 20-man raid was the specific question?
So, a Defiler in a raid is another healer. Obviously, the links are something that's unique to the Defiler, so it is a very, very handy thing to, say, link up your tank. It's just another form of mitigation that you can spread the damage around, makes it a little bit easier to heal. So, you know, you're not going to see a lot of Defilers in raids, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see at very least one.
They're pretty popular already on Alpha. A number of people are already combining them with Purifiers, so that not on the same character, but you have a Purifier and a Defiler to get maximum mitigation on the tank. And the Defiler has plenty of good HPS after recent fixes to make sure that he fulfills some of the role of the Sentinel itself of just providing raw healing to the tank, on top of the mitigation that he provides through the links.
Yeah. The big thing about the Defiler in a raid situation is they are really meant to help soften the damage and redirect the damage. That way it puts less stress on the primary healers.
But he can also, depending on like how well overgeared you are in a situation, or depending on your raid's needs or dungeon's needs, he's also well equipped to switch to a more damage-focused role where he's providing a smaller amount of healing, still providing plenty of mitigation, but he's much more focused on DPS instead. He'll never reach the same level as, say, like an Inquisitor, because he's not focused entirely on DPS, but he can still provide a fair amount, making him pretty useful.
And another kind of simple question. Somebody was asking about the armor our Defiler is wearing. What is it?
So the armor is just one of the new Storm Legion armors. It's a Cleric armor, obviously, chainmail. It's one of the little more darkly themed ones, but it's just a Storm Legion armor. Some of the really awesome armor that we have in the game. It's actually not even a raiding armor for that matter. It's you'll see it fairly frequently and fairly early on.
Well, that was a concise answer. Here's an interesting one. Can the Defiler be a good standalone soul? Does it have to be combined with other souls, and if so, which ones to make it useful?
It's a great standalone soul.
I'm running 61 Defiler right now.
It's a great soloing soul because it's so durable. It can put out a lot of DPS while still taking a lot of damage itself. So it's really great for solo, and it makes a good dungeon healer and good in a raid. So like, it's pretty decent in combo with pretty much anything, but it's really good just straight up.
Back to the beacon. Can you name beacons?
No, you cannot. It is not a real pet. It just pretends to be. So you get the portrait and everything of a pet. You can't name it. You can't go tell it to attack something because it doesn't move. It's just an object made of gross things.
Although your own pet target dummy would be kind of cool.
It would. But that's not what it is.
another question. In Vanilla Rift, healers scaled a lot faster than player health, and eventually were able to top off people very quickly. Are you changing that, tweaking that in Storm Legion?
Yes, we most definitely are. So the raid progression in general is a lot better planned out this time, where we're able to look ahead and plan out our numbers really from the start, so that we can get our DPS and our HPS progressions in stone for basically the duration of the expansion already. So instead of kind of building as we go along and being more reactive, we've planned it out pretty well so that hit point growth and HPS growth remains fairly similar so that we can catch up. But if it does become a problem, we're always ready to change things up and try to fix it.
That's the real important thing to note, is the fact that, you know, over the past year and a half of tuning and building Rift, we have learned quite a bit about how our players play the game, how our players interact with raids, some of the flaws and the faults, and we have been working pretty hard to make sure that those things are better.
Yeah.
Just trying to copy down a couple more questions for you guys. Here's a good one. How does the Defiler fare in PvP?
Oh, he should be a lot of fun in PvP. He's dangerous, but he's fun, because there's always the risk that with your links on other players that people's attempts to kill them will inevitably kill you instead or as well. So it's something that it serves the role like a purifier of giving a lot of mitigation in PvP, but the big advantage he has over a purifier is that he's got a lot of fast casts. His foul growth is a 1.5 second cast, and then his other main heal, Loathsome and Restoration, is an insta cast. So he can do a lot more healing on the move and running around keeping everyone alive without kind of standing there channeling 3-second casts.
And here's a question maybe for you, James. Some people are asking, they're noticing, you know, on beta that there are some players out there. How do you get into beta right now?
You have to be an exceptional individual who provides extremely clear, concise, and constructive feedback on a regular basis.
Or otherwise bribes me.
Yeah, or otherwise bribes Adam. But, yeah, no.
I am running short, hint, hint.
So yeah, it is. They're all hand selected. We do pull in people from, you know, other beta tests as we see, you know, people kind of come out and stand alone. But, you know, we've only got a few hundred people out of the tens of thousands that can potentially participate in beta. So it will stay a fairly limited group, but the good news is we've got open beta coming up next weekend, and that's going to run, I think, an extra day or something. It's going to run Friday.
We're still looking to see how long we want to run our open beta.
I think at least
the very least
Friday
it's going to be the
Monday.
weekend. Yeah, at the very least it's the weekend.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important, if you are interested in closed beta tests, like Elrar said, we look at how you perform in not only our open beta tests, but on our alpha server and in general. The people that are in our closed beta right now are some of our most trusted alpha testers. These are the people that when we have a new patch that goes out, they're out there testing the patch, giving us really good constructive feedback. And constructive feedback doesn't necessarily mean it's, you know, they're telling us what we want to hear, but they're telling us in a way that's not antagonizing. It's giving us the information we need in a concise way that we can understand and we can kind of pull in. Numbers are always good.
Yeah.
And we pull from those people. Now, that's not always necessarily a full guild or one of our guild testers. Sometimes there are people in here that are specifically giving us great crafting feedback. There are people in here that are solo players. In fact, right now we are looking for people in smaller guilds and groups of people, like 4s and 5s, that can help take on some of our dungeon testing. So if you think you're a particularly good crew, a 5-man, and not necessarily a raiding guild that just wants to get more people in, and want to help us test our expert dungeons, by all means, you should you know, Pelk, Elrar, myself on the forums or in private, and maybe we can work something out.
I really like how the bond just spins around as the me.
Couple more questions for you. I know that somebody was asking about the damage that clerics do in general, and, you know, how does the damage work? Also, they were asking why the damage numbers aren't being shown right now on the stream.
Elrar turned them off.
Elrar turned them off. So
I told him to leave them on.
The real important thing, and I'll reiterate this again because I think it comes up in every single one of our live streams, when we're balancing damage, our overall goal for damage and healing and everything else is to get everybody to an even level of performance. And by even level performance, I mean over the course of most encounters, it averages out. Now remember, encounters are going to favor different types of classes or different types of souls. An encounter that doesn't involve a lot of movement or doesn't have a lot of, cone attack type of encounters is probably going to favor melee classes. An encounter that, requires a bit more movement or has things that you have to avoid at close range are going to favor ranged classes. The important thing to note is we're designing a lot of our encounters and we're designing a lot of our classes to work in the situation when there's a little bit of both. So certain people are going to excel in certain situations. Clerics are no different. Their DPS souls will be able to do DPS similar to what other souls are doing. They may pay a little bit of a price in some of their hybrids in terms of DPS because they get additional survivability. But when you look at a pure DPS soul, our goal is to get them competitive with the rest of them.
Here's a good one. Because you guys said that the pet was not a true pet. Can you use it with another Specs pet?
No, you cannot. It may not be a real pet, but you can't use them both because that would be problematic. But namely because it needs to take up the portrait window and because it does take all of your aggro. You cannot stack it with a druid's pet. So
there are many bummers being said in chat.
Make your choice.
Yeah. Well, that being said, if you've taken a druid, there's very little reason to take the beacon itself. The beacon really is there for all the combinations that do not have pets, right?
Yeah, he's meant to be the target dummy, to be there to take the brunt of the damage in the case that you can't have a pet.
Here's another one that just came up. How will the Defiler work with a tanking spec?
So, with an early point investment, like with just a few points invested into him, it makes a lot of sense because if you want to do a little more damage as a tank, he has those low point things in the 0 pointer that benefit from taking damage. But one thing to note is that the intercepted damage that he takes from the target, because it's post mitigation, it doesn't get mitigated again. So if you put it on a tank and he takes 1,000 damage, and let's say you absorb 250 of that damage, that number is going to remain the same when it gets to you, except through the things that reduce it on the link itself. But your mitigation doesn't play into that number at all. So you can't play a Justicar with a little bit of Defiler and like mix the two together to get like less link damage. It doesn't work that way.
Really, what
but it's not really meant to be a huge go-to for a combo with Justicar.
Yeah. Really, it's not meant as a tank supplement. At the same time, there are some interesting combos you can do. As an off-tank supplement, it's actually quite good because not only can you, do your off-tanking jobs, but you can also help mitigate a little bit of the extra damage that's coming in front to the main tank when you're not there to off-tank, right? So it's kind of, a shield wall or a block or an intercept, which is really super useful. Now, that actually brings up a really good question because people have been talking about tanks and Justicars in general. So I'm sure people out there want to know a little bit what's gone on with the whole everything's an Icar spec with Cleric. So why don't we fill them in a little more detail?
Yeah, so Icars got a little messy as time went on, becoming the go-to Cleric healer in general, let alone AoE healer. And that just wasn't really what we wanted, to go into the tanking soul for your best AoE healing. So the Warden is now the premier AoE healing soul. He's hands down got AoE healing covered better than anyone else. I'm not going to call Icars dead by any means because they're still quite effective. But like Doctrine of Loyalty, not your go-to AoE heal anymore. Like there's still plenty of benefit in 0 point for Justicar Salvation, and he can still spec that spread to the group and do a fair amount of healing because the Justicar remains the healing-themed tank. But that's more for the Justicar. It's more of a little bit of added raid utility and an aggro generation tool. It's not meant to be your go-to for AoE healing. Yeah. That is the Warden.
But the important thing to note about a lot of the Icar specs is some of the people that played the Icar specs that were non-Doctrine of can't talk today. Non-Doctrine, I'll just cut it there. Sorry, it's a little too much. Non-Doctrine specs still have quite a bit from Salvation and everything. So there's still really strong solo specs. There's still really good supplemental healing in small groups and such as well.
And there's still a lot to replace the old Icar specs of combinations with Warden and soon combinations with Defiler that get you a lot of similar gameplay, a lot of the same kind of things, but more appropriately balanced for what they're supposed to be,
and more important,
in souls where they belong.
Yeah, and more importantly, it's not the go-to sub-soul for every cleric. We wanted to mix it up and spread it on out a little bit.
We want options, and that kind of thing actually reduces options instead of increasing it.
So I know that we are running a little bit short on your time right now. You've got to get back to working on the game. But there are a couple more questions, and one that I keep seeing in various forms is, you know, why should you bring this role into raids? And more importantly, somebody said, you know, why should raids bring more than 3 clerics, which is pretty specific.
Well, so this is the really important thing. Everybody has to remember, while raiding is a big portion of our game, it is only one portion of our game. Not every class is going to, or not every soul is going to be perfect in every raid or every encounter situation. There are definitely going to be encounters where the Defiler is going to be super useful, because linking and spreading damage is going to be a tactic that is very valid. At the same time, there are going to be more than enough situations where, say, a Sentinel or a Purifier or a Chloromancer is going to be better chosen. We're not trying to make every one of the souls the end-all, be-all. We must have one of each soul in our raid because, well, we have 36 souls now and 20 people in a raid, right? So there will be different circumstances and different situations where you'd want to take a Defiler. There'll be different circumstances, different situations where you want a Chloromancer, you want a Purifier, you want a Warden. In general, though, we do want, 3 healers, or give or take. It really depends on the encounter. Do they all need to be clerics? No, not really. Can some of them be a Chloromancer? Yeah. Have we designed it so, the support healing can be done by a bard or tactician? Definitely. We want to give people more options for the things that they can take into raids. Now, that being said, there are people, especially people on the bleeding edge, they want to eke out the extra 2% or the 3%, and they're going to figure out what the best combination is. They're going to take that. But we want to make sure that the majority of players, especially people that are behind the bleeding edge, have more options for the composition of their raid group so people can play what they want to play.
But honestly, the Defiler is really popular in raids already on Alpha, because he's just flat out damage off the top. So everyone loves damage prevention, and the Defiler is pretty much the same place as the Purifier in damage prevention, and you can stack one with a Purifier.
Awesome. Questions are coming in more quickly than I can read them, so I am attempting to grab some from you guys.
All right.
So here is a good one. Are Defilers going to be able to grief just because of that whole shared damage?
So the damage is happening to you,
yeah.
So there's not...
If you want to grief yourself, by all means, link up with somebody else.
But yeah, you're taking the damage from someone else and giving it to yourself, so you can't really grief anyone with that.
Unless they're suicidal and your whole goal is to keep people from killing themselves. At which point, yes, the Defilers are excellent at griefing suiciders.
Well, that's
and in-game suiciders, So.
And guys, I know that a lot of you are asking about guild perks and housing. That is not for this one, so I am not ignoring you. It's just not for this stream.
There are more guild perks, though.
Fun fact, there you go. Part of it's been answered. Speaking of raids, are you going to make raids more focused on progression? Sorry, it's scrolling very quickly. Make the raid experience easier, where raids get completed more quickly.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a perfect example question for next week when we're talking about dungeons.
Not really a cleric question.
But just to answer the question real quick, our goal is still to have very challenging content for people to play, but also figure out the best way to make it more accessible, wide range. So we've got a number of things we're working on. We've got a couple of plans for the live game in the next year after we've launched Storm Legion. Really, how players react to the content that we release is going to be how we adjust it moving forward.
Excellent. Well, I guess that does bring us to wrapping things up. Okay. So I think I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be seeing in the coming days and weeks. So
Yeah.
James, do you want to take it away?
Sure.
And give us a
Yeah.
little bit of that?
So we've got a four. We've got 4 more live streams coming up at least before the launch of Storm Legion hits. We are just weeks away at this point now, and so next Tuesday you'll get to see.
Scoot in, they'll be able to see you a bit. There you go.
Hello. Next Tuesday you'll get to see the Dungeons of Brevane. So we'll be hitting up each continent, 1 each week, 2 live streams each. So Tuesday will be the Brevanic Dungeons, and then after that on Friday we'll have an actual kind of overworld atlas tour of Brevane itself. You'll get to see the zones that are currently available. And then we will be next week, or the week after rather, the week right before Storm Legion launches, we will be showing off Duskin. So again, that Tuesday we'll do the dungeons, and that following Friday we will do the entire tour of the continent itself.
So when we're talking about Dungeons of Brevane, right, we're talking about, what is it, Imperium Core, Golem Foundry,
Stormbreaker Protocol.
Stormbreaker Protocol. Yeah, there are quite a number.
There's a number of them, yeah. Yeah, what are there, 7 total? Or
well, yeah, there's 7 dungeons. We've got a 10-man raid and 2 20-man raids.
There we go.
And also, so you guys know, because we are on a different channel, if you want to see these upcoming streams, go to twitch.tv/tryonworlds and follow us. Then you'll know every time we go live. You can also go to our Twitter or our Facebook, which is /riftgame, and sign up and find out all the fun things that Elvar has going on for you. And we do have the full list of what we're going to be showing in the next couple weeks on that Try On Worlds channel, so you won't be able to miss anything. So I think that's all. You just guys want to sign off, say goodbye until
Cheers.
next
See you
time.
next week.
Yes. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye, everybody.